everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Best Games, period. I'm your host, Jack Gardner, and with me this week is Daniel Jones and Dean Stephenson, returning guest, friend of the show. Welcome.
Howdy ho.
Yeah.
Hey, Dean. When did you get here?
I've been here a while, my friend.
Did you just never leave?
Yeah, I've just been in the chat every time you guys do a show, and just always hoping that maybe sometime I could say something, but...
Were you here that time we were bad-mouthing you?
I don't want to talk about that, thank you.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for sticking around anyway.
I badmouth you enough on Facebook that I guess I kind of have it coming.
It's been a while since we've recorded a new episode, actually. It's been about a month of breakage in the shows we've been putting out, and I feel like we're at least a little bit more revitalized. I know, Daniel, you're actually moving this week, which probably makes recording a little bit difficult, so... Yeah.
Literally, my laptop is the only thing that's still, like, not packed in the second floor of my house, upstairs. Everything else is packed.
But, including your Switch?
Well, that's downstairs.
Okay.
I will say, well, my PlayStation 3 is still hooked up because the kid likes to watch Netflix and stuff on that. That's upstairs, and the PS4 and the Switch are downstairs on the big TV. So we'll move those last minute this coming Saturday.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is actually like the first time you and I, Daniel, have actually recorded since the Banjo-Kazooie episode, which was beginning of December. So it's been a hot minute.
It has. What you been up to?
Oh man, I haven't actually been up to a whole lot. I've been just working away on Extra Life stuff, and I can talk about it a little bit more now, but I've been working on launching this new D&D podcast. I talked a little bit about it on the Patreon. And I actually put the first episode up over on there, so you can check that out. It's called We Wanted Adventurers, which I think it's a good name, but it wasn't until I tried saying it out loud that I realized that Adventurers is a really hard name to pronounce.
Yeah.
It's the double R at the end. Adventurer. It's like rural juror.
You sound like Richard Nixon.
Yeah. And try saying it. Adventurers. I can't do it.
I am not an adventurer.
Adventurers.
Yeah, it's this weird, mumbling end. And if you overpronounce it, adventurer, then it just sounds really weird. But it's a really fun podcast. I got Marcus Stewart, who's a friend of the show. I believe he was on last time on episode 84 to talk about Sonic the Hedgehog 2, and which is a garbage game for garbage people. And
Indeed.
He's on that episode defending it, and he's also on We Wanted Adventurers, and I also got my friends and seasoned role players, Kevin Black and Alexander Reagan, and it's just delightful, and we're having our own little adventures. It's pretty great. So I highly encourage I'm not sure when that's going to go live, but everyone should listen to it because it's a really good time. We have a whole lot of episodes in the can, so right now we're kind of wrapping up that the first story arc. So it'll be a good time. So that's kind of what I've been working on. Yeah.
Dean, what about you? Well, what's new? You don't have to say you've been working on anything. You've been playing any games? I saw you. Did you 100% Super Mario Odyssey?
Holy
I freaking
smokes.
did.
Holy smokes.
So yeah, I got man, I almost said Hyperkin for some reason. I was thinking about them earlier for some reason.
Hey, they make good machines.
Yeah, decent. So I got Mario Odyssey when it came out, and I've definitely played a lot of it since that time. And so recently, my friends and I had our annual 24-hour marathon. We moved that to January. We used to do it in October. And so I brought Mario Odyssey. I finished up there was like a big final challenge in the game that you can do. And it's pretty tough. I've played it a lot, and I finally got through it. And then there was a moon that I couldn't figure out in a kingdom that shall remain unnamed, so I don't spoil anything. And a friend of mine was sitting next to me, and he totally knew what to do because it was kind of a reference to a previous Mario game. And so he's like, dude, you need to do this. And I was like, what? You know, it just was like, so it's the only moon I had left to get in the game, and he helped me get it. But besides that,
Nice.
the really exciting thing for me about Mario Odyssey, besides it being amazing, is that I was determined to play that game like the way I played games back when I was a kid, and it's been a while since I remember doing that completely.
Like with one hand in your pants? I don't understand.
No. Just meaning like staying off the internet, not getting help, not looking up where to find moons, and just struggling through it, and just enjoying that exploration, and just enjoying that, like, I'm going to just keep trying to find these things that I'm having a hard time finding, or completing this challenge I'm having a hard time completing, and I'm just not going to look anything up, and I'm just gonna do it. And it was very enjoyable.
Nice. See, the way I played games when I was a kid was I would buy the player's guide, and I would just follow that till I got everything.
I only got one guide when I was a kid, and it was for Donkey Kong Country 2. I was like super obsessed with that, and I'm like, I'm gonna get everything in this game.
Maybe that's why you like 2 better than 3.
You mean the superior Donkey Kong Country between 2 and 3?
Inferior.
We don't need to restart this conversation. And then at the marathon, I didn't play Mario Odyssey very long, so just the first few hours, and then I put in Breath of the Wild, and I played that almost the entire time. The majority of the time I spent playing Breath of the Wild. It was nice to get back to it. I was only about maybe close to 20 hours into that game. And so when I played at the marathon, I finally made some significant progress in the game. I beat the first dungeon, and I got some new things, and I got really excited, and I was like, dude, I was liking this already, and now I'm just like super hooked, and I'm in. This game's amazing. So that was pretty cool. And then the last thing I'll note is that I played some Cuphead for quite a while at the marathon. I played it with my friend Titus and helped him. Not that he needed my help, for the record. I don't know that he'll ever listen to this, but I know you don't need my help, Titus. You're better than me at video games for sure. But yeah, so he had played a lot of the bosses on simple, and now he was trying to play on regular, so that he could get the requirements to get to that final island in the game. And so him and I beat, I think, like 4 different bosses, and it was funny because we beat one of them. We got one of them. We assumed what character was on the list that he needed, and so we played the clown guy. And we both hate the clown boss. Like, he's such an idiot, and he's just a sucky boss. I hate him so much. But and then after we beat him, we realized it didn't give us a notification for the soul contract, and so we looked at it. It's like, oh crap, he's so-and-so, and we needed this, and so then we had to play this other boss, and we're like, oh, we just played the clown for nothing.
So you've played a lot of Cuphead and Mario Odyssey. Interesting.
I've been playing a lot of Switch, man, so right now, as we're recording, I'm playing Splatoon 2, because I can just, I don't really need to pay that close attention. I just need to spray paint everywhere, so I'm playing Splatoon, and man, I'm not exaggerating. Like, I've just really, really, really been enjoying my Switch a lot, and I mean, to the point, now here's some hyperbole, okay? But to the point that my entire life I've had a hardcore bias towards the Super Nintendo being the best Nintendo system of all time.
That's because it is.
I'm like, there's no way I would ever consider any other system. Just listen now. Just listen, okay? Take a breath. Just take a breath. I'm not making a statement yet, okay?
It sounds like you're making a statement.
It sounds like a statement.
No, listen. What I'm saying is that I'm open to the possibility that maybe someday, like a few years down the road, I might look back and I might have to wonder, I might have to have that conversation with myself and go, wait a second, now let's talk about this. Is Super Nintendo the best game or the best console of all time? Or is maybe the Switch the best? Maybe. We'll see.
Ooh.
All right.
Okay.
We'll talk to you in 10 years.
We'll see. I mean, 10 years. 10 years. Look, I highly doubt it. I highly doubt it because, man, my love for Super Nintendo is so incredibly strong. But at the same time, Mario Odyssey was a heck of a lot of fun. Breath of the Wild is – okay, so I've played Link to the Past. I've played Wind Waker. I've played what's the Game Boy Color one? Link's Awakening?
Yeah. Well –
There are a bunch of Game Boy Color ones.
Link's Awakening was Game Boy. Game Boy Color was Oracle of Ages and Oracle of Seasons.
They did the DX version on Game Boy Color. I played the Link's Awakening DX. I downloaded it on my 3DS and I played that.
Yeah.
So those are the only Zeldas I've ever played. Please don't lecture me for that. I know people get really hung up on how have you not played Ocarina of Time.
I'm learning, and I'm just internalizing all of those questions and letting the silence that you experienced right there speak for itself.
Yeah. I know there's questions, okay? But my thing is, like, Link to the Past, amazing, okay? And Wind Waker, really, really good. But so far, my experience with Breath of the Wild is just like, man, it just makes Wind Waker just feel like, I don't know, man. Like, for me personally, I'm just like, Wind Waker just seems so easy, and I think I was always just kind of waiting for something amazing to happen, and I just don't feel like it happened until the very end. And, like, it was cool, but it was just not, like, you know, top tier life-changing experience.
Boo! Boo!
You can... I'm used to Dan being booed, okay? I don't know how to react right now. I'm usually joining you in doing the booing.
Well, I mean, I'm always down for booing Daniel, so if you want to do that right now, I'm all for it.
It'll happen at some point, man. We've got time.
This is supposed to be an episode about the best games of 2017 because we always said we were going to do that.
I probably need to save some of what I'm saying for that then. But
yeah.
I'll just, just in general, I'll just say I really like the hardware of the Switch a lot. And just that going back and forth between home console and handheld is just... It's just a great freaking concept. It's great. And I love that I'm playing a handheld that it's not suffering, like, tech-wise, you know? Like, you're playing games, and you're going, I'm playing, like, legit console games. Like, yes, it's not as powerful as PS4 and Xbox One. I understand that. But it's certainly not, you know, like, one of the things that really bugs me is I like my 3DS a lot. I honestly don't like the 3D games that much on, like, 3D graphics, not eye-popping out 3D, but I'm talking, like 3D models.
Yeah.
You know, like, I play Luigi's Mansion, and I do like that game. I'm not saying it's a bad game at all, but it's just disappointing. Like, you look at it and you go, man, like, these games look so bad. Like, why does it have to be this way? Like, I wish that Nintendo had handhelds that had way better graphics. And then now they've switched. Oh, that was not even intentional at all. It was not even intentional at all. But it happened, and I'm embarrassed because that was dumb. But
you should be. You should be ashamed.
Now they've find a replacement word for that. They've done that.
Yeah.
It's just exciting. I love it.
Here's one thing, and this is just a gripe about not the 3DS hardware itself, but the way Nintendo has developed games for the 3DS. Like, I feel like we should have been able to kind of master a better visual design for underpowered 3D games by now.
Right.
Like,
I agree.
I feel like that a lot of work has been done in, like, the indie gaming sector on PC, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And then something like... And this comes with all the love in my heart because I love the Fire Emblem games, but the 3D art style that they adopted for those handheld games is just...
It's hot trash.
Well, yeah, and they could, like, that hardware is fully capable of having, like, beautiful 2D animation, or even, like, a more stylized 3D aesthetic, and it's just, for whatever reason, and they are slowly getting better, but they just haven't been able to kind of nail down a good art style for 3D on the 3DS, which bugs me, because I don't think the Switch is really a solid replacement for the 3DS, you know?
To a degree, but I can kind of understand what you're saying. Like, it's not quite as convenient.
Right.
It's not quite as portable.
Right.
I definitely get it. On the Zelda note, it's related to what you're talking about. So I absolutely believe people when they tell me that Link Between Worlds is a great game, and I do want to get around to playing it. In fact, I had a friend of mine he bought one of the, I think it was the Majora's Mask 3DS, and it came with a code for Link Between Worlds. He already had the game, so he gave it to me. I was like, oh, thanks. So I did load it on my system. I haven't played it yet. But it bugs me because I just look at the game and I'm just like, this is like, in essence, a sequel to, like, an amazing Zelda game that has, like, withstood the test of time. It's timeless. It's amazing. And this game, like,
it's like a link to the past, you know?
And so I look at Link Between Worlds, and there's parts of it that are, there's that weird, like, he walks up against the walls and he's a painting or something. Yeah. And so they do some stylized stuff in there that I think will hold up over time. But I just look at that game and I'm just like, not only is this game not going to hold up over time, it already, like, at its release, has already looks dated.
Yeah.
So that's
kind of like Samus Returns too. I felt the same way about that.
Yeah, that one didn't bug me quite as much. Like it was a little less. It was a little less of a problem. I think it was probably just because of the 2D, the 2.5D thing. But yeah, like this. That's the same thing with that. I'm like, why didn't you just make something stylized? Like, do we not understand that? I mean, have you guys seen? I'm not saying 3DS can handle Dragon Ball FighterZ, but I mean, have we seen these games, folks?
Well,
have you had your eyes open? Do you know that games like Rayman, with the cartoon style, look amazing? Like, give us more of that.
Or
Cuphead.
Alternatively,
yes.
Like, there's a reason the Super Nintendo versions of Metroid have withstood the test of time, and that's because they look gorgeous even by today's standards. You, like, look back at it and it still looks good, whereas the 3D style ages rapidly depending on technology. And
but, like, from what I've heard, polygonal graphics are much easier and quicker to produce than hand-drawn 2D sprites.
Oh, for sure. Especially if you don't have a studio that's built around that kind of development.
And that's why a lot of studios end up doing that. Like, that was the justification for, what's his face that's making Bloodstained. Like, that's why.
Oh, yeah.
I've heard, Igarashi, I've heard him say, like, it's just a lot more efficient, it's a lot quicker, and that's why they didn't go with the Symphony of the Night style.
Well, yeah,
Bloodstained.
you can just make one character model and then animate it.
Right.
And then you're done. But
right.
I don't know. I feel like maybe I don't know. This is a huge digression.
I'm sorry. I just really wanted to express that I like Switch a lot. That's
Yeah,
all I wanted to do.
Okay, I'm gonna chop off this tangent, and we're just gonna go top 5 games of 2017. I already have my list. I didn't really arrange it into any given order, but I'm excited to talk about all these games. And just a little shout out. I talked about some of these on Building Gaming Rushmores, which is a Carving Gaming Rushmores, sorry, which is a podcast that Marcus Stewart has running, where every episode people come on his program and talk about what 4 things on a given topic they would carve into a Mount Rushmore. It's a very unique concept, and I encourage everyone to go check that out. But this time I get 5, mother trucker. I'm excited to talk about my picks.
Can I note something?
Yeah.
This is important to note. So I just want to note that, man, there was a lot of good games this year, and I didn't get time to get to all of them. But there are some that I've at least played at least a little bit of, and I've definitely, like, heard others discuss a lot of these games. So when I argue, it's, like, not necessarily going to be from the point of, like, me playing it, which, you know, would probably be the most valid stance to take, but you
like, see the value in it. Like, you've played enough to see the value.
My opinion, I'm still going to have an opinion, but I mean, I might have a positive opinion too. Just because I didn't play it, I might go, well, I haven't played this, but I mean, I can't argue with you.
Right.
Right. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of all 3 of us. Nobody can play every game that's been released, so we're all just kind of. I don't know that we're gonna argue. Maybe we could argue over the one game of the year. I think that could be fun.
Yeah.
But for the most part, we're just kind of gonna gush over the games that we enjoyed this year, and yeah, there's a lot that I didn't play that I wish I could have played. But that's part of why I wanted you to come on, Dean, just because Jack and I have not played everything, and you haven't played everything either, but you have played different stuff than we have played. You know what I mean? So
right. Yeah.
We have a more diverse selection to pick from. All right. So, as our distinguished guest, you should go first. What's one of your top 5 games?
And to clarify, are we doing this in any given order?
I mean, I ordered mine, but you guys don't have to.
I am embarrassed to admit that I have not thought of a rank for mine, so I'm just gonna go in an order that's not sequential.
No problem.
First game I'd like to bring up, and I'm not even sure if it's in the top 5, but I'd say like a game that I just kind of came out of nowhere. I didn't know anything about it. All of a sudden it was here, and people were talking about it, and I was like, I'm hungry to play stuff on my Switch, so I got Golf Story.
Yeah.
That game is cool. I haven't beat it yet. I've played quite a bit of it, but it was funny. I think I heard Giant Bomb say the biggest problem with Golf Story is it maybe has a little too much golf.
It's the golf. The golf is the problem with Golf Story, yeah.
I thought that was funny, but I mean, I was really into it for quite a while. And then it started dropping off on my priority list because, yeah, I mean, I like it, but you just get to a point where you're playing a lot of golf, and I'm just like, I mean, yeah, I get that that's the point of this game, but, yeah, I've played a lot of golf in this game,
well,
so...
I think that's the problem, is it's super repetitive.
Yeah.
just the golf mechanic is really repetitive. It's the same thing over and over.
I think the golf in that game is fun. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It's very simple. But weirdly, my favorite part of that game is not the golf. It's just a really quirky,
it's the story,
interesting game. Like
charm and the humor.
I love it though because in a lot of ways, it reminds me of I've never been an RPG guy, and there's so many RPGs I need to still get to. Never played Chrono Trigger. I've never played Earthbound. I did play some Mario. What is it called? Mario
RPG.
It's just called Mario RPG. Of course, I should have known. Nintendo.
Legend of the Seven Stars.
Mario Golf, Mario Tennis, Mario RPG. But I remember when I was playing that, I've always known that people have said, well, the part of this, it's about the story. Like, the reason people love Final Fantasy III and Chrono Trigger, they're like, it's just such an amazing story. But I could never get past what I was doing in those games when I tried them. I'm just like, I don't like the turn-based battle systems at all. Like, it wasn't interesting.
We agree on something.
Oh man, you guys are so wrong. You guys are so wrong. I just need to say that you're wrong.
I could be wrong. This is actually something I'm just okay, positing that I'm probably wrong, because I know that RPGs are very popular, and I've always wanted to be into them, but it's just, I don't know, man. Like, I just find, like, I played, we had a game day, me and my friends did, and I played Super Mario RPG, and I played it for probably at least 10 hours. I just never found myself going like, I really like what I'm doing in this game.
You should play Child of Light, because that's the only RPG I've ever actually, finished. Like, that kind of RPG. I played probably, 8 hours of the South Park RPG, the first one. But that's about it. So, but I love Child of Light.
I'm glad you reminded me about it, because I honestly forgot about Child of Light. It was on my list for a long time, and then it just kind of disappeared in my mind, and I forgot about it.
It's really beautiful, and I love the soundtrack. It's really good.
I think the reason I was into that for the longest time was because I think they made that in that UbiArt engine or whatever that was.
Yeah.
And I remember when Rayman Origins came out, I'm like, just people make more games with whatever they're doing here. Like, just use that. Like, do it. So, anyways, going back to what I was saying, just to wrap up with Golf Story, it's great because I love the story, and I actually like what I'm doing in the game. Like, the golf is fun. There's a little too much of it at times, but it's fun, and I like
Frisbee
it.
golf
and
sucks, though.
I got the hang of it.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get used to it. It's odd.
I figured it out with help from people on the internet, but it's still annoying.
So that's the one I'm mentioning first, Golf Story. It's great. Right. You should check it out.
Yeah.
Good opening. And you should check out our episode on Super Mario RPG that tells you and explains to you why it's one of the greatest games of all time. But
if I'm completely honest, I don't think I even know that you guys did an episode about Super Mario RPG, so noted.
Do you even know what podcast you're on right now?
I know what podcast I'm on. I've been on it, my friend. We battled and we talked about Donkey Kong Country, and it was stressful, and it was fun.
I won.
And I laughed,
I'm pretty sure Dean
I never
won.
Cried. Oh, I definitely won.
You cried after the podcast.
Jack, what's one of your games?
I'm gonna start small and go big. I think with my list. I also didn't order mine at all. But one of the best experiences I had with a game that released this year, and this is kind of cheating, but it's Danganronpa, which released as part of a combination of the first Danganronpa and the second one. I believe it's Danganronpa 1-2 Reload. I think that's the remaster name of it. But the Danganronpa series originated on the PSP and also then made it to the Vita.
Yeah.
And now it just this year it came to PlayStation 4, and since I didn't own either of those handheld systems, this has been my first opportunity to play it. And
Sure.
people online won't shut up about it, and so I finally caved to peer pressure when I saw it was on sale.
Tell me about it.
And it's actually really fun and interesting, and I was kind of enchanted by it. And the basic premise is that there's this high school in Japan that only accepts the most exceptional students. So you have to be kind of the top in your field in order to get in. So whether that's like you are a pop star or a baseball, up and coming baseball star, or martial artist or gymnast or swimmer, or like coder, whatever. You have to be the ultimate in something. And the main character happens to win a raffle that proves that he's the ultimate lucky student. And so he's accepted, but he doesn't really have any exceptional skills, and he's kind of self-conscious about that. And the very first day, all the kids go to the school, and they all black out as soon as they enter the school. And then they wake up, and they're in kind of this twisted version of the school where all the windows have these huge metal plates bolted over them. The exit to the school is this giant vault door that's sealed. And while they're all kind of wondering what happened and what's going on, this weird bear creature basically tells them that they are trapped inside of the school forever until the day they die. But there's one way that they can get out if they want, and that is to participate in the killing game. And the killing game is essentially they have to murder one of their fellow classmates and then get away with the murder.
So it's like anime Saw.
Kind of. And so what ends up happening is there are kind of these distinct modes of the game. There is just kind of living life, where you get to hang out and kind of get to know this cast of 15, 16 characters. And then a murder will happen. And then you have to investigate the murder and collect all the evidence. And then it moves into a class trial where you have to put together the evidence and figure out what happened and who did the crime. And the kind of the catch is that if the murderer gets away with the crime, the entire rest of the class is executed. So you really have to figure out who did it. It turns into this weird mishmash of melodrama, because the time you get to spend with all these characters, you get to know them pretty well, and then all of a sudden one of them will commit a murder, and you have to reconcile that with like the person you've gotten to know over the course of the game, and like, why'd you do it? And you kind of get wrapped up in all these mysteries, and it's really satisfying and entertaining. It's super. I found it to be a really interesting kind of almost a lesson in how to make characters that you care about. Because there are very few characters that you just outright hate in the game. And most of them have specific reasons for doing what they did. And you like understand why, by the time they are found guilty, you understand why they did what they did. And it kind of clicks, and the game wants you to have empathy with all of these people. So you're never like, yeah, this person died, that's great. And you're just kind of like, it's interesting drama. And I think that's something that a lot of games lack. And there are certainly problems with it. Like there are some characterizations that would not fly today, or I hope wouldn't fly today, because the original game came out in 2011, I think, 2010, maybe even earlier
something
than
like that.
But overall, I thought it was really great. It was really interesting. And I would encourage everyone to go out of their way and try to play it, because it's on the PS4 now, and I might also be on the PC. Not 100% sure on that one, but it's well worth playing through. So yeah, that's my nominee.
I have a request.
Yeah.
You need to help me be able to say this name of this game. Like, what are you saying? You're saying something that's strange, and I can't.
Danganronpa.
So it's
right?
Dan, Gan, Ron, Pa.
All one word, right?
Yeah, one word. So when you put it all together, yeah, Dan, Gan, Ron, Pa.
Okay, Dan, Gan, Ron, Pa.
So it's about a guy named Dang and his
and Ron
sidekick Rampa.
Rampa.
Dang and Rampa.
I believe the full title of the first game is Dangan Ronpa Trigger Happy Havoc.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And that's another aspect of the game I didn't really touch on, but during the class trial, basically you have a bunch of these mini games that kind of have aspects of like a first-person shooter to them. So your arguments take the form of a bunch of mini games. So you're like tying everything together logically, and then also playing these mini games as like a representation of that. It's interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna go in order.
Okay.
So my number 5 is Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild.
Oh snap! The biggest shocker.
I feel like I'm in trouble for like putting that at number 5, but whatever. It's lucky it made my list at all.
You're such a butt, by the way.
I haven't even really played that much of this game. Probably, I don't know. I'd probably put at least like 20 hours into it, honestly. Just wandering around and finding different shrines and finding different weird things. But like, my life just doesn't fit with Breath of the Wild very well, but I can tell that like I'll probably just play that game for the next 5 years and just like pop it in every once in a while and play a couple of hours and just see something new and then not really go back to it. 'Cause I just don't have the time to sit. Like, to me, that's a game that you really have to sit down and just dig into for a few hours at a time. And I just don't have the time to do that anymore, or the energy.
Or like the majority of a 24-hour marathon.
Right. Like, if I could do that, then that'd be great.
Yes, it is convenient to be able to have that time.
Yeah, and I play mostly on handheld mode, my Switch. So playing Zelda in handheld mode just it's not ideal for me, personally.
I would actually agree with that.
I think it's harder to see things in the environment. Like, you just have less incentive to explore because it's harder to see vantage points and so that's just been rough. But anytime that I have like really dug into it and played it, I got a Pro Controller for Christmas, so I've been playing a little bit on the big screen, and it's really a really great game. And the weapon degradation is a pain in the ass, but it's been less so the last couple of times I've played, which is encouraging. But like, man, when I'm just exploring and meeting different people, and like this one time I found this heart-shaped pond, and there were these 2 people there, and I helped them, like, well, I helped the guy try to get together with the girl, and it was just a really funny, interesting moment in a game that I never expected to encounter something like that. Like, it was just really cool. And just exploring and getting into trouble and finding out different weird things that happen depending on how you interact with the environment in that game. It's really great. So it makes my number 5. It might end up being one of my favorite games of all time 5 years from now when I've actually played enough of it. But like, but for now, I can appreciate it for what it is.
I don't know that I would have had much to say about it prior to putting a ton of time into it recently. So when I had played nearly 20 hours, like it hadn't really grabbed me that much yet, you know, like kind of, but not much. So completely fair enough that, I mean, that's kind of how you're feeling about it so far.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, what's your next one, Dean?
Okay, so
I don't know that one.
This is how I want to handle this, okay? Can you think of anything in life in relation to video games that is more overhyped than freaking Sonic?
No. That's why Sonic 2 sucks.
Sonic is like the most overhyped thing that doesn't deserve the praise that it gets in ever. But here's the thing.
Yeah, where are you going with this?
I'm going to bring up Sonic Mania.
Okay.
Sonic Mania, I have not beat yet, but I've played quite a bit of it. I'm confident I'm over halfway through, at least. I have really enjoyed that game. In the past, I have played Sonic games. The only Sonic game I can think of that I have actually played all the way through was Sonic Chaos on Sega Game Gear, and I usually get very frustrated with Sonic games, and I just think that there's just issues with them, and there's things about them, like there's these instant deaths that annoy me so much, and there's things I don't understand about Sonic, and
bad level design, and
I usually get frustrated and give up. Yep. But I have honestly really enjoyed Sonic Mania. I think it's a great game. Okay, hold on a second. I think it's a really good game. Like it's like, okay, so Sonic.
It's an okay game. It's you know.
Here's okay. I rate things on a 5-star system. It's a simple system. It's like, you know, you hate it, you don't like it. You like it, you really like it, you love it. Sonic has always teetered on, like, I just barely like it. And I feel like Sonic Mania makes it be like a full 3. Like
so it's a full pretty good.
Your game of the year list is really confusing to me.
I know. How is this one of your games of the year?
Because
at a solid 3.
Because a lot of the stuff that I played this year didn't come out this year.
Right.
Okay, fair.
To be fair, like Joe, my buddy Joe, who's been on this show, I think he was telling me that's probably his game of the year, and I don't even think he's the biggest Sonic fan. He really likes that game.
It's a cool game. It just makes me. I like the idea of it because it makes me think, like, you know what? I think other people should do this. You know, like, I think this game looks a lot like Sega Genesis Sonic, and I think it would be cool. You know, like, that was a big part of why I liked Mario Maker so much, because it was using the style of, you know, the best Mario games ever made, Mario 3 and Super Mario World, and we got more of that. And so I think that was part of what was so exciting about Sonic Mania was just, you know, like, I'm not going to deny it, man. Sometimes nostalgia is just, it's a heck of a drug.
Yeah.
So I've never had nearly as much nostalgia for Sonic as I have Mario, but that game is pretty rad. So, and then just to piggyback on that, I'm gonna add like it's like a half entry, but there's this game that came out on Switch this year called Rocket League, and I just really want to mention Rocket League, and you can deal with it. I'm bringing up Rocket League.
I mean, that's game of the year for every year going forward.
Rocket League is amazing, and I would just like to publicly state that I have bought that game 3 times, and I'm proud of it.
Should be.
All right.
Yep. The end.
Deserves it. Jack, what about you?
Yeah, it's my turn. So I'm just working my way up in terms of size and notoriety, but my next pick is the Sexy Brutal.
I've heard of this. I don't know anything about it.
Okay, so for people who don't know anything about
it's sexy. I know it's sexy.
It's not even really that sexy. It like all the characters are kind of these cartoonish figures with big kind of they look like when you turned on big head mode in GoldenEye. That's what they look like.
Wow. Well, that's not sexy at all.
No,
that's horrifying.
And it's a very slow paced game, but it actually ends up being like this really beautiful, really interesting experience, and I appreciate it, and like I appreciate so many other things on my top 5 list this year. I appreciate it because it's not built around murdering people. Which, that's like almost every game.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah, that's fine. I'm not like, no judgment. It's just that when every single game that comes out that's like a huge blockbuster is centered around murdering people, it's just kind of like, well, I appreciate the things that don't do that a little bit more.
Yeah, it gets boring.
Yeah.
It really does.
And so,
it's like, okay, we get it. You shot a gun, you killed somebody. Congratulations.
And so the Sexy Brutal is essentially your character is invited to this casino. It's like this giant sprawling estate for this casino game night. And you get to the estate and then someone murders you. But at the point of your death, this weird spirit comes to you and is like, hey, there's something supernatural going on here, and you need to kind of collect all these masks and prevent all the murders that are going to happen tonight. So you kind of become like this quasi-spiritual / real entity, and your job is to prevent murders that are happening throughout the house over the course of the night that are being perpetrated by these people possessed by these masks. And the catch is you can't be in the same room as people who have these masks on. And so you end up having, it's like a combination of stealth and adventure game. So you're stealthing through the mansion, and then you are trying to undo the plots that are in motion to murder the other people that are at this party. So whether that's like taking the bullets out of a gun that's going to be used to kill someone, or like, making sure a poison drink doesn't get delivered to someone. A lot of it is first like stealthing around and observing what happens, and then you get to rewind time to then try and prevent it from happening. And it's really interesting and really great, and I found it to be incredibly engaging and intriguing and fun and different. That's not the only game from Tequila Works that I have on my list for 2017. So
yeah, I'm a little confused. Did Tequila Works develop that, or did they like publish it?
I think they published it.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Is that on consoles?
I'm not sure. I played it on PC.
Yeah. I'm gonna look it up, because I would like to play it. I just, And
it has a very slow, methodical pace, too. And that can be kind of grating, because you kind of want to get around places a little bit, and sometimes the game doesn't explicitly tell you where you need to go all the time. So it doesn't spoon feed you throughout the entire thing. You kind of have to figure out what to do next.
Right.
If I'm honest, I'm still hung up on a game called Sexy Brutal, and then you're telling me about Big Head Mode in GoldenEye, and I'm just trying to reconcile these things.
I mean, it doesn't look exactly like that. It's like a more stylized version, but they do have big heads.
Okay.
It's somewhat cartoony, so, you know, like the horrific acts of murder that happen
Okay,
are
so
disturbing.
not like the polygonal garbage
No.
look of. Okay,
No.
okay. This is helping a little bit at least.
Yeah.
It is on PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah, go check it out then.
It might be on Switch also. I don't know. The Wikipedia page is not up to date. It says the Switch version was released. No, was released in December 2017. Okay, so yeah, it's on everything.
Cool.
All right.
What about you? What's your number 2 here?
Well, I'm going descending order, so we're going from 5th to 1st here. So number 4 for me was a game that I did not expect to even play this year, let alone end up loving. And I have not finished it, which is why it's at number 4 and not maybe higher. But also the reason that I haven't finished it is one of the reasons I didn't love it as much as I might have otherwise.
Okay.
Nier Automata.
Oh, really? Okay.
Automata, whatever. However you're supposed to pronounce that.
I think it's Automata.
Yeah, but in the game, they pronounce it Automata.
Okay.
Yeah. So, have either of you played it?
No, but from everything people have said to me, it sounds like something I should play.
Yeah, I definitely recommend playing it. It's an open world action RPG, emphasis on the action, and it's anime as and if you know me, you know that like that's not really my style, but man, the characters, the story, the world of that game, a lot of people complain that it is very much an ugly world and that it looks like a PlayStation 2 game or an early PS3 game. And sure, maybe at times, but it didn't matter to me. Like, everything in that game is in service to the story, and that includes the open world and the tone of it all. So the story is incredibly complex. It's really hard to explain, but it's about these androids who are in this essentially like just permanent, everlasting war with these robots. And the robots are more primitive than the androids, but the androids have basically made it their mission to wipe all of the robots out. And you're seeing it all from the androids' perspective, who are essentially the good guys in this conflict. And you end up like they're supposed to be doing this all for humans, and they're in this war for people. They're protecting humans or something. You don't really. It's all super vague, and it's intentionally so. But you go through one playthrough playing as this one character, and then you go through a second playthrough playing as the other character, her sidekick, 2B and 9S. And the second playthrough as 9S is kind of repetitive on a gameplay front because it is a lot of the same scenarios. You're going to the same places. And the first playthrough of this game is, I don't think people talk about it enough because the third playthrough especially, like, things start to open up and you have to play through the game several times to get the full story. And that third playthrough, there's some really crazy revelations. But the first playthrough, the whole game, like, people don't talk about just how freaking, like, Wizard of Oz this whole world is. There's so much interesting shit to discover, and every character that you meet is trying to figure out their place in the world. And that is the overarching theme of the game, is just trying to these machines that I was going to call them people because they feel like people who are just trying to figure out their lot in life and their place in the universe and what they're supposed to do, what they're meant to be. And all of them are grappling with that conundrum, and it's all about that. And so everything like is in service of that overarching theme, but there's also just so much more to it. It's really hard to explain if you haven't played it, and playing through with the different perspectives, you start to see things from a different perspective, and it makes the story that much more interesting. But like, you just learn things about different characters. Like, for instance, there's a boss fight that you go through in the first game that is super interesting, and it's a lot of fun. It's this crazy robot lady that has pieced herself together through the parts of different robots that she has murdered, and she's trying to like make herself prettier for this other excuse me, for this other robot that she's trying to impress, and he's never impressed, and she's just constantly trying to impress him. And but you don't know that. You don't really know that. The first time you fight her, you're just fighting this crazy robot lady who's just trying to make herself prettier. And in the second playthrough, you learn more of her motivation because you play a different character who has the ability to hack the robots. And when he hacks them, he learns their inner thoughts, and you learn all about her backstory and why she is the way she is, and it just makes things super interesting. That's a minor example. There's a lot more bigger examples in the other characters that makes those sequential playthroughs a lot more interesting. But I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling. Nier Automata, I could talk for hours just about that game.
Yeah.
It's super good. So
I don't want to derail too much, but like, so that fit pretty well with like your life. Remember how you were talking about Breath of the Wild?
Yeah.
Like, does it have like levels? Is it?
No, it's open world, but I think that's part of it, is that it's the kind of open world game, and my number one pick is also this way. We'll talk about it later. But it's the kind of open world game that I personally, when I play an open world game, I like to have some sort of direction, and I like to know what I should be doing next, and I like to feel like the game isn't constantly pushing back as I try to do whatever it wants me to do next. So I don't do well with open world games where I have to be a certain level cap, or I have to have certain gear or whatever to get to the next main story mission. I don't want to have to go and do a bunch of different side quests and shit. I just want to stay on the mainline path, because that's just kind of how I roll. I like games that...
I can't hear
you. You can't hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know you could hear that so well. I'm sorry. My wife came down here, and I was trying to whisper to her that I was not thinking about the fact that I have this amazing new headset on.
You can whisper sweet nothings in my ear.
I'm glad I didn't say anything else. Good grief.
I like games. I like open world games that don't feel like open world games. I'm weird, I know. So Nier Automata, it definitely feels like an open world game. There's a ton of side quests you can do, and I didn't do a lot of them. I've heard that they're really good, but I didn't do them, many of them. I was able to just, pick the next story mission and go to it and do it. What about you, Jack?
I think it's Dean's turn, right?
Wait. Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, we went back around. Yep, sorry.
Splatoon 2. I have actually played quite a bit of it, so...
You're playing it right now.
I am playing it right now. So, I have Splatoon for Wii U, and I just recently got around, kind of towards the end of the year, this last year, I finally got around to finishing the single player in the first Splatoon, but I basically as far as I recall, I don't know that I ever touched the online stuff at all in Splatoon, which I know doesn't make sense. That's kind of what it was made for. But it was one of those games that I bought, and I was kind of hoping some of my friends would buy it, and they did, but then a few of them did, but then they never really got around to prioritize playing it. And then people just, kind of overall just most people fell off Wii U anyways. And so then my brother bought Splatoon 2, and he wasn't that into it, and his kids weren't really that into it. And so he's like, I am just going to give this to you. And I was like, come on, man. You don't have to do that. I was like, I can buy it from him. He's like, nah, man. He's like, I'm just going to give it to you. And I'm like, okay, thanks. so then that made me want to, like I said, go back, and I was like, man, I should finish up the single player in the first Splatoon. And so then when I got done with that, I was like, you know what? Like, I want to play the multiplayer. I should play the multiplayer. And so I started playing the multiplayer, and I got pretty hooked on it. Like, it's just been fun, and it's a great it's always great to have a really good podcasting game. Like, when you really just want to sit and listen to podcasts while you play video games, it's been great for that. And so and I've liked they added a mode called Salmon Run, and I do agree with everyone's...
It's about running with salmon!
Right. I agree with everyone's thoughts that I don't understand why Nintendo has to be so freaking weird and stubborn about things, but it's a mode that's not always available, and it's pretty much like, I don't know what the system is. Maybe people have figured it out. Maybe you can kind of pinpoint and know when it's going to come back, or like there's like a routine to it. But it's one of those things where I'm like, well, how am I supposed to know when Salmon Run's available? So it's just kind of annoying because it's like, if you're in the mood for it, it's like, well, you got to wait until Uncle Nintendo says, okay, it's okay, you can play this now. And it's like, okay. But that aside, I don't know, man. I've enjoyed it, and I don't really have much of a comparison to the first one in terms of the online. I'm pretty confident it's probably not that much different. There's new weapons, but I have a feeling it's probably just a little bit better Splatoon, which is, there's definitely nothing negative about that. So it's nothing wildly new in terms of looking at, new things for 2017, but it's cool. I was glad that they didn't just, kind of like what they did with Mario Kart. They just did the deluxe version of Mario Kart 8. And they did, add quite a bit of stuff to it, but I'm kind of glad that they at least tried to do a proper sequel instead of just feeling like you're getting this port, kind of thing. So I've really had a lot of fun with it. I'm at level 15.
Is that good?
I don't know.
I have no point of comparison.
But to me, that's just kind of a measure. I'm just attempting to give a measure for people out there that know Splatoon. It's like, well, how much have you played it? I'm at level 15? Question mark? I don't know what the... And then I'm not very good at ranked. I like ranked. It's fun. But I was bummed because I lost too many times in a row, and you get these cracks in your leveling bar. Like I'm ranked.
They tarnish your reputation.
Yeah, so like you start at like, I want to say you start at like C minus, and then you can, like, your bar fills up with your wins, and then you can go up to B, A, etc. But then with your losses, if you like, I don't think it cracks immediately after a loss, but after a few losses, it'll crack, and then it'll crack further. And if you keep losing, it keeps cracking, and then it breaks, and then you you drop in rank. And that was a huge bummer when that happened. And ever since then, I've been like, I think I'm just going to go back to regular battle mode and just, like I'm just playing this casually, so I'm just like, whatever. I'm not really trying to play this super competitively necessarily. Like, I've just been playing it incredibly casually. So, I wish I had more to say about it. One of the things that kind of bums me out is I've heard the single player is largely a retread of what they did in the first game. I think it may even have like the same final boss, maybe remixed, like maybe hopefully it's not straight up the same exact final boss experience as the last game, but I've heard it's the same boss. So that'll be disappointing, but it's been fun to finally play some Splatoon online. I always kind of wanted to do that back when it came out on the Wii, but I just never got around to it, and there was just always a lot of other things I'd rather play, and I was super in terms of my Wii U. If I was going to sit down and play my Wii U and turn on my Wii U, I was going to play Mario Maker because I'm super into Mario Maker. I love that game. So, anyways, the end.
All right. Now it's my turn, and this was one of my favorite experiences of the year, and I fully acknowledge that maybe it has flaws, and that maybe at the end of the day, its central narrative is really, when you get down to it, simplistic. But I found it very effective. It nailed what it set out to do, and I really appreciated it. And I thought it was just beautiful and near perfect execution of its core mission, and that is Rime. Another game from Tequila Works, and this time a game that they actually developed. And you can actually listen to a spoiler cast where Daniel and I talked about it in great detail, but for those of you who aren't going to do that, and there are probably a lot of you, Rime...
Can I ask for a timeout?
Yeah.
First of all, do you have a Switch?
I do not.
No.
Okay.
He doesn't.
So you're playing this on...
I played it on PS4, yeah.
Okay. I'm not poo-pooing on your thing. I wanted to point out that, like, from what I've heard, unfortunately, that game's port on Switch is pretty bad.
Yeah.
And so the people I've talked to got it on Switch, and they're like, "Oh, the game's rough," and everything I've heard about it has unfortunately been the errors of the Switch version. So I'm excited to hear good things about this game, is what I'm trying to point out.
Yeah, the PS4 version that I played had no technical problems whatsoever.
Yeah, I didn't have any issues.
And
nice.
I did not, there weren't like dropped frames, there weren't lag issues, there weren't crashes, or whatever happened on the Switch version. Like, none, it was all, it worked perfectly on the PlayStation 4. And I do remember those issues coming up, but I personally, when I played through Rime, didn't encounter any of that. So this is for the non-technical issue version of Rime, I guess. But for those of you who haven't played it or haven't really heard much about it, Rime is the story of this kid who is shipwrecked on a mysterious island that's kind of filled with this ancient magical technology. He encounters various creatures and entities during his time on the island, trying to find a way out. The entire story takes place without any dialogue, so it's all based on visual cues, a few flashbacks, and just kind of inferring things from the environment. And it all builds up to this final act that I found to be very emotionally moving, where, I don't want to spoil anything, but there's basically a companion cube moment. And I would argue it's even more effective than the companion cube. And then it kind of, the final 10 minutes of the game kind of turn everything that you knew about the game on its head, and paints the entire game in a different light that makes you want to play through it a second time. It is enchanting. I thought the visuals were really great. At first, you kind of make there are a lot of people out there who will make comparisons to Ico and also to the Wind Waker, because it has kind of that cel-shaded art style. It kind of has a minimalist design philosophy like Ico. But it manages to nail this narrow path where it's its own thing. And then on top of all of that, you have this really well-told, sensitive story that really has an amazing payoff. And it is probably one of the most haunting endings to a game that I've ever played.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't as affected by the ending as you were, but yeah, it's a good ending.
I mean, but and part of the reason I like it, and I don't want to go into
you're
any
cold,
spoilers,
Dan. We don't care what you think.
Yeah, obviously.
Is just because it's not afraid to end on a down note. Like, a lot of games, especially these days, a lot of games are built around wish fulfillment and, making you feel good. And Rime is much more of a journey, and that journey doesn't necessarily go places that are always fun and enjoyable. And the ending isn't fun or enjoyable, and I kind of like that. I like that darkness, because it's something that's actually very real that everyone has to deal with, and that's kind of the mission statement of this game, is that, hey, life is beautiful and wonderful and magical, but there's some dark stuff in there that we all have to deal with, kind of spread amongst all of that majesty, and how we deal with it is as important as how we consume and kind of experience all of the good things too.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So I know some people get annoyed with like direct comparisons because it seems too like reductionistic, but like maybe you said this earlier and I wasn't paying attention, and forgive me if that happened, because it's classic me, okay?
Yeah.
But like, so for people who like Shadow of the Colossus, Journey, that kind of stuff, like, is this like in that wheelhouse?
It's more of in Journey's wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's telling a different story than Journey. One of the things, because I brought this up on Marcus's podcast too, so I'm kind of retreading some familiar ground, is that there are puzzles in the game, but I wouldn't classify it as a puzzle game. And there's some light platforming elements, but I wouldn't call it a platforming game. It's much more of an adventure game.
It's an adventure / almost like walking simulator.
Yeah.
Of the third-person variety.
With very light puzzle elements.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's more about kind of experiencing a sequence of areas and kind of internalizing that entire journey.
It almost kind of reminds me of like Abzu. Like there wasn't really a lot to do in that. Which I need to play more of that, by the way, but my daughter loved that game so much that I was like, okay, I'm going to make an effort to play through this whole thing with her and not play any of it without her. And then it hasn't worked out, so I haven't gotten back to it. But anyways.
I've played through Abzu probably like 4 times.
Game is amazing.
And part of what sets Rime aside from those, from Journey or Abzu, is more that it has a much more concrete narrative.
Okay.
That's like in Journey, it's like Journey
it's abstract.
Is about the journey. It's kind of like this abstract thing that you can project a lot of different meanings onto. Whereas Rime
Journey's like doing drugs, man. It's like a trip.
Yes. And Rime is very specifically going for like one thing. And I think it nails that one thing, and it does a really good job at that. And it was probably the thing that the game that most emotionally affected me in 2017. And so whatever other problems it has, personally, that's what elevates it to my top 5 for the year.
Yeah, I think that's the reason it didn't really make my list, was because I don't think I was quite as emotionally invested in it as you were.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great game. I liked it a lot.
And also the soundtrack, I highly
solid 3.
It's a solid.
It's a solid 4.
I would give it like a 4.75. Like, it's pretty close. Like, it has issues, definitely, but I think sometimes I think flaws add to the charm, and for me, I was kind of able to roll with everything, and it just worked for me. And I understand it didn't work for everyone, which is a shame, but final shout out, the soundtrack is like a Studio Ghibli movie. It felt majestic. And
it's real good.
It hit all of the emotional beats that it had to, in a really impressive fashion. So I loved every moment I spent with Rhyme. So
does it look really good?
Yes.
Like, is the animation pretty satisfying?
Yes.
It's a very pretty game. Yeah.
I've seen video of it, I think, on YouTube, but it's just, it's one of those things where there's been plenty of times where I've actually gotten around to playing a game, and I'm just like, oh, man, we are in a day and age now where watching a YouTube video of something just doesn't do it justice. Like, like, it was the same thing with Cuphead. Like, I'd seen, plenty of preview stuff for Cuphead, and then, oh no, I made a mistake almost. Why did I bring up Sonic Mania? I may have brought up too many games. Oops. We'll work through it. It'll be okay.
Okay.
But yeah, like, I was wondering, I wanted to know if I was going to see this game and it might be a little bit more satisfying than what I've seen. And it seems like it might be the case. So.
Yeah, definitely playing it is a lot more interesting than watching it. Yeah. Am I next?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Number 3, I just finished last night, actually. It's called Hellblade.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think this was going to make my list because it took me a while to really get into Hellblade. And it's not a super long game, so it was just kind of like I would say probably the first 3 hours or so that I had played, I just wasn't super invested. I was kind of interested and thought it was kind of cool. It's a very pretty game. It's a really pretty game. And the sound is amazing. So anyways, explain what Hellblade is. Hellblade is like a AAA indie game. It's a game made by Ninja Theory, who made Heavenly Sword and Enslaved and DMC, Devil May Cry. And I like basically everything that they do, and I was very excited for Hellblade. But what set Hellblade apart was that it was kind of a AAA game that they made on an indie budget. And their goal was to sell 500,000 copies at $30 a piece, and they met that goal a couple of months ago already. So that's good. They broke even, at least. And so the business model around it is super interesting, and the way that they kind of promoted it was they had like 30-part documentary series on YouTube where they just talked about the development at every stage of the way, and it was really interesting. I kind of followed the whole development of this game, and so it focuses on a Celtic warrior named Senua who is struggling with psychosis, which at the time they don't call it that in the game. They just call it the darkness,
because it's a period piece, like,
and the rot.
Vikings wouldn't have a word for
exactly
psychosis,
right?
She's haunted by spirits.
She is going north to fight people, basically to avenge the death of her lover, who you find out through the game is like the only person who ever really treated her like a person. She learned how to be a warrior with him, and she fell in love with him, and he loved her despite all her struggles with mental illness, and which is not a thing that she could really say about her father. And so you learn all about these struggles that she had in the past, and what kind of brought her to this stage in her life, and it becomes this sort of Beowulf type story, this epic poem of this woman trying to resurrect her lover by killing a god, and all the while dealing with these psychotic breaks. And like I said, it took me a while to get into it, but once I got deeper in and started to kind of see what was happening in the story, and the combat just kind of clicked. At first, like, the combat is very simple. It's very, like, you dodge a lot, but then once I learned how to parry and how to utilize, like, the power, the more powerful attacks, and just managing the multiple enemies on screen all at once, like, it could be really fun, and it all ties back into the themes of psychosis and struggling with mental illness, and
it's quite literally a struggle against psychosis. And
that's the thing, like, you feel like you're really struggling with it yourself, and you know, I'm coming at it from the perspective, there have been people who have more experience with mental illness than me who have criticized the game for undermining the mental illness. I don't really have much outside of just normal depression. I don't have experience with deeper mental illness, so I'm coming at it from that perspective. And to me, like, especially when you wear headphones, it feels like a struggle, and it could be a really intense game. It's one of the most intense games I've ever played. Like, there's scary parts, but just for the most part, it just feels overwhelming. It feels unbearable sometimes.
And I think that's like one of the big barriers to a lot of people who are coming at the game, is that it is so overwhelming. It demands a certain dedication and headspace. Yeah. And it's hard. It physically drains you to play
it is. Yeah.
Hellblade.
Yeah. Did you finish it, Jack?
Not yet.
Okay.
I have to keep taking breaks, and I've just not been in a good, like, mental place to actually tackle
I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just took me a while to get there, but once I finished it, I just sat back and was like, oh, okay, yeah, that feels like a really important game that I just played. That's a game that's going to stick with me for a long time.
Yeah.
Is it actually, like, skill-wise hard to play, or is it more that it's challenging to experience?
The second one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I played on the normal difficulty, which is actually a variable difficulty. It changes depending on how well you're doing.
Okay. So it's not necessarily like this game is, like, harder than Dark Souls. It's just really challenging to.
It's mentally taxing, emotionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's a good game. I enjoyed it a lot.
All right.
Glad I finished it.
Hey everybody, it's me, Jack Gardner, your host. I'm just popping in to say a few words here because we actually ended up talking with Dean for a really, really long time. It was a really great podcast. Really enjoyed having him on the show, and I wanted to keep all of it in. And as you know, we usually try and keep it down to an hour, but our discussion actually ended up taking 3 hours. So this is just part 1, and you will probably have, deduced that from the title, which I assume will have somewhere in it part 1. And I am hoping to get the other half of it, at the very least, up by next Monday, and hopefully sooner. I'll be aiming for Wednesday, but that's just kind of what's going on here, and I'll do a little outro. I'm kind of recording this on the fly as I'm editing, so yeah. With Extra Life, you should definitely check out Extra Life if you've never heard about it before. It's this wonderful charity. It's part of Children's Miracle Network Hospitals. And basically, people get together all across the United States and Canada and play video games to help sick and injured kids. And all the money goes to Children's Miracle Network Hospitals and helps the hospital directly. And actually, when you sign up at extra-life.org, you can choose which hospital you want to support, and then 100% of everything you raise goes directly to that hospital. So you know where the money's going, and all of it's going to the hospital. So it's really, really fantastic. I encourage everyone to check it out. And with that being said, you can find this podcast on Twitter at bestgamesperiod. You can tweet at us, participate in polls about the games we've talked about, and you can also follow us on iTunes. Please leave us a review. That really does help us, and if you've been a long time listener of the show, we'd really appreciate some feedback. And if you are looking to maybe help us keep the podcast going, you can head over to patreon.com/bestgamesperiod and just throw us $1 per month, and it helps us kind of cover the hosting costs of the show. And while they're not a whole lot, every little bit that we can get really helps. So if you are interested in doing that, please do. And as I mentioned earlier on the show, we have a bunch of extra stuff on Patreon. We have movie and game discussions that don't make it onto the core podcast. And on top of that, I just recently posted the first episode of We Wanted Adventurers, and it's a really great show. I think it's pretty fun and has a lot of good laughs, and that will be launching soon. So you can listen to the first episode of that and kind of get a taste of what that podcast is going to be like. So all of that being said, you're all looking really lovely today. You're an attractive bunch of listeners, and I appreciate you, each and every one of you, taking time out of your day to listen to all this, whatever this is. So thank you so much. I hope you're all having a great day, and we'll see you on the flippity dippity.